Playtime, written by Garrick. Fleet Captain, we've finally found an inhabited world. The scans confirm it. There are beings living there. High Lord Zraxix stretched his appendages and pulled himself out of his command throne to examine the results for himself. Months of finding nothing but empty worlds, often full of ruins devoid of anything truly worth plundering, had given him quite a short temper. His acquisition fleet was on a routine mission for the Acri home cluster, expanding into this region of space, seeking further slaves. But it seemed luck had been against him. Now, finally, things were looking up. It seemed this world was just barely out of the Iron Age. They lacked even firearms. After a week of scanning, it became clear that the locals barely understood the concept of an army. There was the occasional conflict, but no fortifications or any of the other expected signs of organized war were visible on the world. The bipedal creatures, how did they stay upright with only 2 ambulatory appendages, seemed to live in total agricultural ideal. What cities there were had a maximum population of 20,000 souls or so. Such a simple conquest would make the expedition worth the effort at last. On his call, the operation began. The locals were completely surprised. A few orbital strikes combined with his marines and some strategic bombing had made the locals surrender quickly. The operation to strip this world of its strategic resources, including slaves, began in earnest. Their languages were simple, and their leaders eager to please. Bringing these so-called humans into the fold as a subject race would raise his status to new heights. After 2 local months, the locals showed some signs of resistance. So he had the leaders of the local kingdom, King Carol and Queen Mixa, arrested and brought to the interrogation chambers. One of the Nafi slaves was there to assist him. Normally, this would be far beneath the High Lord, but the occupation was so boring he felt entitled to some amusement.
You will tell me all you know about the so-called resistance, your majesties.
The mockery in his voice was clear, even to the helplessly bound creatures.
I have studied your kind, and you clearly have strong mate bonds. So if one of you does not answer the questions I ask, I will harm the other. Slave, bring me my tools.
The interrogation was amusing, and the humans screamed with great gusto when he was creative. But still, their answers were hardly helpful. It seemed they really did not know anything. But maybe a few nights in the cells would calm them down. After the High Lord left, the Queen turned her face towards the servant assigned to monitor their life signs. Why? Why did he do this? We have not harmed him, and why do you help this monster? The servant hung one of its heads in shame and explained that his own world was a victim of the Acri as well, and that disobedience would mean that its gene line would be removed. What do you mean, gene line? The king asked with a broken voice.
It means all those who descended from me, my brothers, sisters, onto the 2nd generation. The Acri are brutal overlords, but we could not stand against them. Unlike you, we did try to fight as we knew they were coming, but they overwhelmed us, like they have so many others.
The king and queen looked at each other for a moment. Others? To how many have they done this?
I do not know. Personally, I have seen dozens, but it is probably more. I advise you to cooperate, please. Eventually, our species will know freedom, but not now. Not yet.
With that, the cells descended into silence. When the High Lord returned the next morning, he kicked his servant awake.
Lazy creature! I should have you purged. How dare you sleep when I am awake?
Before he could go through with the threat, something grabbed his appendage he intended to use to punish the slave. To his surprise, the queen was free and holding her own. No. This simple statement stunned Zraxix for a moment, but then his shock wore off.
Guards, get in here. A prisoner has broken loose. Kill it.
In a flash, his bodyguards jumped in and shot the queen multiple times, her body racked with shocks as the bullets tore her to shreds. The High Lord took his personal weapon out and pointed it at the king's head. How did she escape? Tell me, and I will make it quick for you. Did this worthless creature have pity on her?
Carol lifted his head and looked at the High Lord. I think I've been too complacent too long. We have neglected our duties.
We have become invested in this fantasy too much.
Mixer's voice chimed in. All those in the torture room looked in shock at the body of the Queen, only to see it rise whole again, although subtly wrong. Her limbs were longer than first, and the color of her skin had paled to grey. Before anyone could do anything, the king's arm shot out and took the weapons from all three guards. The appearance of his third arm was as disturbing as the fact that his shackles seemed to melt into his body. The occupants of the room also noticed how the stones seemed to flow and slowly take a metallic appearance.
I don't know what you are, but if you do not surrender at once, I will have your planet and your people suffer. We still have tens of thousands of you in our holds, and I will not hesitate to space them,
Zraxix shouted. As one, the king and queen turned their head to him and spoke in the same time, with the same voice. We are human. Your threat is not what you hoped. Putting us on your ship for months has given us all the time we needed. Even as they said this, the Acri communications kicked in.
The buildings are melting. Oh, gods, what is...
Sir, all the humans are just standing there. Wait. What?
This is the quick party. We are detecting massive energy spikes on, What do you mean we've lost contact with engineering? What is happening to the floor?
The forest is changing. There are armored units literally forming in front of us. What do we do? In what used to be the cell block, the Acri were now firmly contained by metal bonds, and the king and queen had melded into the single entity. Only vaguely resembling a human, Will Tremor started.
Ah, what are you?
The servant dared to whisper, looking at the entity. The wall to his side flowed, and suddenly the queen was standing next to him again.
Human.
I am human. We are human. We discarded our form a long time ago, when we perfected nanomachines and mind capture. Once we strode the stars, but eventually we made a mistake, and we're alone. We decided to return to a state that we remembered fondly throughout our history. Clearly long enough for others to reach space again in our absence. With a wave of a hand, the hologram sprang up, showing how the very surface of the world was flowing and reforming itself in what could only be starships of some kind.
Long have we been in a haze. Our name is forgotten, but that'll change again. Humanity is back, and we will retake our rightful place. We can finally play again. Let's see how being the good guys feels this time.
End of story. I sat in the viewers' gallery of the Human Mercenary Guild courtroom. I'd given testimony yesterday, and the lawyers had finished their closing speeches about half an hour ago. The Quadi would likely deliver his verdict soon, but until then, I had nothing useful to do. So I found myself pondering the strange series of events that led to the Human Mercenary Guild operating as de facto galactic government and enforcing peace and something like justice, all without actually conquering anybody. In the beginning, of course, we fought wars directly, without human involvement. We hadn't met them yet, so what else could we do? Then we met them and recognized their strength, toughness, and overall skill in killing. The first mercenary contracts were signed mere days after first contract, and the Human Mercenary Guild was founded shortly thereafter. It took several wars for the rest of the galaxy to admit humans were an ultimate trump card. If one side hired them and the other side didn't, the one who did would win, almost regardless of any other resources or tactics, which inevitably led to the question of what happens if both sides hired humans. Turns out the answer is ugly. Apparently, they've been holding back, trying to minimize enemy casualties, given ample opportunity to surrender, watch out for bystanders, that sort of thing. But another human is an actual threat, So they can't afford to do that. Thousands of people died of standing too close to their human when the enemy human attacked with explosives. It very quickly became clear that no one wanted to see human on human violence, least of all, the humans themselves. So the guild put forth a rule. If two human mercenaries must face each other in combat, they fight in a highly constrained, deliberately non-lethal, extensively ritualized manner, and the loser retreats from the field. So began the age of money. Whoever could hire more humans could win all wars. But more idealistic elements within humanity objected to this, even as they got very, very rich off of it. So the guild put forth a new policy. Anyone whose cause is just can hire for 1/10 the price that the customer with an unjust cause pays. And the guild courts determines whose cause is just. Hence the trial I'd just taken part in. The Quadi returned. He gave a brief speech declaring the Babadi in the right and explaining why. The Babadi payment would get them 10 human mercenaries. The Illusi's equal payment would cover only one. 11 mercenaries walked into the courtroom and took their positions. Human ritual combat is fought one-on-one. If the Elsuzu champion wins 10 fights in a row, they still win the war. The first of the Babadi forces took the floor. An enormous human with dark skin, short curly hair, and bulging muscles. He wore titanium scale armor that made soft metallic sounds as he moved. On his back was a sword nearly his own height. He spread his legs with a pair of dramatic stomps, spread his arms even wider, lifted his head towards the ceiling, and gave a long, wordless roar. Then he shifted to a more practical stance and marched quickly and decisively to the middle of the room, armor jingling all the while. The Elsuzu champion rose to meet him. He was of moderate skin tone and considerably longer hair, with Kevlar and ceramic armor and a great double-headed axe. He too spread his limbs and roared, though his roar was longer, and he turned his head in all directions as he gave it. He then stomped to the middle of the room and stopped just in front of his rival. They both swung their right arms back, then brought them forward again with terrifying speed. Their palms struck each other with an overwhelming thunder crack. I flinched, and I was not the only one to do so. Most sentient species would die from such an impact. Humans were just getting started. For 3 breaths they glared at each other, then both inhaled more deeply and chanted together in the ancient human call of ritual combat. 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare the war. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.